All right, we've got some cool stuff for you guys here today. I think, Craig, are we on the live stream? Good to go?
Pulling up right now.
All right, so we should be going live into our groups here in just a moment and onto YouTube. But I just want to welcome you guys in. And this is an exciting moment because this is the first episode of Agency on the Rise, our podcast that we are releasing. We are basically taking imperfect action as has served us well in our agencies and served us well in a lot of our businesses. And we're just super excited to see your smiling faces and all this good stuff. So the way that's going to work is when we ultimately publish this podcast, we are going to be we're going to be trimming out this part. We're going to treat this like a live show. The cool thing is that you guys are here live in the studio audience, and we're going to get to interact with you and have some conversations after today's recording. But one of the things I want to practice right now is, I don't know how many of you guys have ever been to a taping of a TV show before, but before they actually start the show, a lot of times they'll like put on the applause sign and they'll like have everybody practice and all that stuff. So our version of that basically is if you find some value in what we're teaching, what we're talking about, in the chat, just say hello and give us some dollar signs. Like $1 sign means it was like a small idea, like, oh, that was kind of cool. And like $10 signs is like, oh my gosh, it's like massively mind blowing. So if you guys want to just try that in the chat right now and give us a couple hello and make sure we're coming through all right, that would be awesome. Let's see those dollar signs. There we go. We got David. All right, cool. What's up, Taylor? Okay. Awesome. Very cool, guys. So we're going to be keeping an eye on the chat, but we're not going to be answering questions until the end of today. In just a moment from now, AJ and I are going to get started in on the training. So give us a second to get everything spun up. You guys are here behind the scenes getting to see everything as it happens. And when this podcast reaches 1 million downloads, you all can say, I was there. I was on the first one. And so you guys are at the beginning of something big and really appreciate your support. We will not forget you when this thing is massive. So all right, so let me just go ahead and get the screen shared here, and we'll go from here. All right, really technical, guys. Okay, here we go. All right, and let's make sure we're hitting record. I got that. All right, almost forgot one of the most important parts is actually to record the podcast. How about that? Go figure. All right. Ready, guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Agency on the Rise podcast, episode 1. I'm Mike Schmidt.
I'm AJ Rivera.
And here today in our first episode, we're going to be talking about how to generate leads for your agency. Now, today's podcast is sponsored by our agency war plan. We're going to be doing an upcoming 5-day challenge that is all about how to double your agency. It's a 5-day challenge where we're going to be walking you through step by step all the things you need to do over the next 90 days to make a significant impact in your agency. So you can head over to agencywarplan.com to find the details on the upcoming challenge that's coming our way. So AJ, what do you say we jump into it? Let's generate some leads for some agencies today.
Heck yeah, pumped up.
Awesome. All right, guys. Here we go. Let me make sure here we go. All right, guys. So we want to talk about leads. And oftentimes when it comes to agencies and they think about where their leads are coming from, I see a tendency for people to focus in on the idea of like a single lead source, right? That there's this one place or one mythical place that all their leads are going to come from. Like if I could just get Facebook ads to work, or if I could just get more word of mouth leads, or if I could just get, this flow of leads happening to me, everything's going to change, right?
Excuse me.
And the thing is that when that one lead source is working, we're on top of the world, right? We're feeling like, this is an amazing thing. We like everything's clicking, like suddenly the sun is shining brighter, the birds are singing, and we really feel like we figured it out. But when our lead sources stop working, it's really quite the opposite. It feels like we're in this pit. For me, it felt like, I was just trying to make something work, and maybe I had bills to pay. I had, team members, employees that had to be paid, and everything kind of just grinded to a halt. And when those lead sources would stop, like we fight it, right? We're like, gosh, like, how do we just get this thing to work again? Like we're on top of the world, then we're on the bottom. We're on the top of the world, and then we're on the bottom. We're fighting over and over again just to do that. And, the reality is that, and my screen stopped working, guys. All right. The reality is that our leads ebb and flow, right? It's a natural cycle. There's times where we've got lots of leads coming in. There's times where we have very few leads actually coming in. And we think about like this, natural cycles, that happens a lot in the world, right? Like there's cycles of the moon, right? It's waxing and waning, it's coming in and out, right? There's the 4 seasons. There's different seasons of the year that we cycle through, right? And even our health, speaking for myself, there's times where I'm feeling fit and I'm feeling strong, and there's other times where I'm not feeling that, and it's ebbing and flowing. And these are natural cycles and natural things that happen all the time for us. The reality is that if we're going to focus on one lead source, we're going to be more dependent upon that and feel those cycles even more. And so one of the biggest lessons that AJ and I found in building our agency and having a consistent lead source and lead sources was really to create diversification of the leads that were coming in. Like, where were our leads coming from? So that way, as things started to ebb and flow, as those cycles started to come in, that it didn't really matter because we had a distribution of those leads. And when one lead source would pick up, maybe one would wane, and ultimately we wouldn't be majorly impacted. And so we want to distribute the risk. We want to take the risk of it's really risky to have a business that's dependent on a single source of leads or a very few number of leads. And so we look at this like a pie, we think about the different sources, like maybe we build a business where we have 5 key lead sources, and that each one of those lead sources is representative of 20% of the leads that come in. So if one of those lead sources happens to dry up, like maybe we're not getting as much word of mouth leads right now as we were getting a month or 2 months ago. Well, we have these other lead sources that could step in and cover the gap. That instead of going from 100% awesome leads to 0%, maybe we ebb from 100% to 80%. And we can further look at, how do we create even more stability in our agencies by creating even more lead sources, right? So if we had 10 lead sources, each representing 10% of the lead flow that's coming in, we can see that one of these things drying up could, it's really not going to have a great impact on us. But the reality is most businesses are looking at their agency like this, that not all lead sources are going to be green at the same time. Like they're not going to have all of the your word of mouth leads and your Facebook leads and everything else is not going to be firing at all cylinders all the time. And most agencies look like this, where they've got 100% of their lead flow from, say, word of mouth, or 100% of their lead flow from hoping that their activity inside of a Facebook group and mining, doing social networking is going to lead to this stuff, right? And so you can kind of see and sense the risk associated with having a business like that. Now, the reality is we all start here. We all start with one lead source, but it's our job as agency owners to continue to develop those leads and develop the different sources that they're coming from. Okay. So let's just talk about lead temperature. And this is a really important concept to understand because not all leads are created the same. Not all leads are as valuable as another, right? We can think about, word of mouth leads, like those are pretty hot leads, right? Those are ones that are probably ready to buy. They have a lot more trust. And then there's the leads of people like you find on Facebook that, maybe they got into your world and they subscribe to your email list or whatever it might be. Those people are super cold. And we have to recognize that as we build our lead sources, that we're instinctually going to create lead sources that are attracting cold leads. Some leads are warm and some leads are hot. So today, what we want to talk about is really talking about the different types of leads and how you can really pick lead sources. And we're going to show you some of the sources that we use to attract these in a few moments. But the reality is that most agencies only run on hot leads, right? Like how many guys currently have a business where you have a strong word of mouth, or that maybe word of mouth is one of your strongest referral sources, right? And the thing is that word of mouth is the reason why AJ and I love this stuff is because think about the word of mouth referral that you get. That's somebody that comes with probably a higher degree of trust, probably already knows what you do, and they're closer to making the decision to buy than someone that's just a stranger on the street. We have the testimonial or the recommendation by somebody who referred them, right? And the thing is that if you're waiting for word of mouth leads and you're waiting for your prospects to come in and show up at your doorstep, it might take a long time, right? Like it's going to take a long time, and you'll have a business that's very unpredictable. And so what we have to understand that all leads, every lead, even the word of mouth ones, go from cold to warm to hot. It's just that with the word of mouth leads, that whoever referred that person to you, they're the ones that did the warming up of that lead for you. They just delivered on a silver platter a hot lead ready for them to engage with your agency. But at one point in time, that same exact lead, that is that word of mouth referral, was cold. It's just that the person that referred it to you is the one that warmed it up. And so just like water, right? All leads start their life as cold, right? All water, when we put it, we pour the water into a pot and we stick it on the stove, it starts cold, but it's the stove and the heating element or the flame that is actually warming up that water. The reality is that a lot of agencies do not warm up their own leads. They just wait for other people to do it, and then they wonder why their businesses are so unpredictable. So we want to talk about the different stages of the leads. We want to figure out exactly kind of different strategies. AJ is going to be walking us through a strategy that we found to attract cold leads, right? He's going to show us some strategies how to attract warm leads. And then our favorite is how to attract hot leads.
Awesome. So I appreciate that intro, Mike. So yeah, let's cover first off what a lead actually is, because I think this is important for us to be on the same page in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here. So the definition of a lead is a top of funnel, unqualified contact. Leads have typically expressed some level of interest in your product or offering, but they've not been qualified yet. Right. So let's see how that differs from a prospect. A prospect is somebody who is a qualified contact who has been moved into the sales process. So you see, there's a big difference here, right? The lead is just someone who's expressed a little bit of interest, maybe in your product or offering, but they haven't been qualified and they're not in your sales process yet. The prospect is someone who has made that lead into the sales processes and it's now in a position where they could potentially buy. And so why is that important? It's super important because I think that because people don't know these definitions or don't think about these definitions, oftentimes they judge a lead generation strategy by its ability to immediately create a sale, right? When the definition of a lead is getting somebody who expresses a little bit of interest into your world, right? And when you can look at it from that lens, you can now see that some of these lead generation strategies that you've had in the past that you thought weren't working may have been doing a fine job of actually doing what lead generation is, which is just getting somebody into your lake. And so I wanted to share kind of our overall digital agency operating system here. It's a 4-step process where, we're building a lake, which is a list of people that you could potentially turn into prospects. We're then warming those prospects up. Then we're selling to them strategically, and then we're delivering leverage services to them. And so I want to make it super clear that right now, all we're talking about is building the lake, right? All we're talking about is building leads. We're not talking about sales. We're not talking about, converting those leads. All we're talking about is getting qualified people into your world so that then you can begin to market to them. And so the idea here is that we want to create or fill our own lake, which essentially is your email list, with fish that are qualified leads, right? And so you must own your own lake if you want to have a successful agency. This is something that we fought for a really long time because we thought that we could survive on word of mouth leads, right? Like we were getting so many word of mouth leads and we were really proud of that. And we were like, man, we have a great reputation out there and our customers are referring us and other vendors we work with are referring us. And, this is great. These are super hot leads, and any other lead that wasn't a word of mouth lead just seemed too hard, right? It seemed like not worth the effort to do that. But guess what? Word of mouth leads are super unpredictable. When we're trying to grow our agency, when we're trying to make hiring decisions, when we're trying to get new equipment, when we're trying to find a bigger space, like it's hard to do that with certainty and confidence when your lead flow is so unpredictable and completely out of control, right? Out of your control. We didn't know when that next lead was coming from. Sometimes we'd have weeks where there was a bunch of word of mouth leads and we were busy and we were celebrating, we were giving high fives, and it was some of our best weeks ever. But then that'd be followed by a month of crickets, right? And I know a lot of times Mike would come to me and be like, hey, it seems a little bit slow, dude. Like, let's pick up the pace here. And, I'd walk away. Yeah, I'm going to go do something. But honestly, I didn't know what to do. Like, there was nothing that I could do that could immediately create leads in our agency, right? And the main issue is because I didn't have a lake. I didn't have somewhere I can go and make an offer to and immediately get some type of response. And so what we want to talk about is like how we can go out and leverage other people's lakes to build our own lake, right? And so this is what cold lead generation is all about. There are people out there that already have lakes full of the fish that you want in your lake, and they'll allow you to go fish in there, right? You might have to pay them, but they'll allow you to do that. And so lead gen is really just about creating a lake that you own, because once you get that fish over into your lake, you can fish over and over and over again for free and eventually pull out those fish that you want out of that lake. And so one of the ideas here is that, we went to Facebook to borrow their lake, right? To rent their lake, to get people out of their lake into our lake. And, it's important that we take advantage of that now, because a lot of people say there's this Thanos snap coming, right? If you're familiar with Marvel, in one of the movies, there's Thanos who snapped his fingers, and in that moment, half the people in the world vanished. They disappeared, right? And there's so many businesses that are 100% dependent on Facebook for ads and for lead flow, that if that were to happen, half the businesses will probably go away, right? And we've seen things that are kind of hinting towards this, right? Facebook regulations, the recession, rising ad costs, so what's really important right now is that we get as many fish as we can out of that lake into our own. And that's just one example of a lake. There's other ones that you can go after, but it's definitely one of the ones that we rely on quite a bit. And so what I want you to consider is that, when you have leads on demand, it's basically like having an ATM machine, right? You're able to produce money because if you have a big lake of people, you can throw offers into the lake over and over and over again and basically generate money. We've always got campaigns going on that are building our lake, to create a bigger asset for us. And we always have campaigns that are going on that are fishing in that lake, right? It's not just something where we pull that trigger whenever we're in trouble. We want to take advantage of it as much as we can. If you were hungry and you had a lake full of fish, how often would you go fishing it? Probably every day, right? Like, we don't get that aggressive with it, but we are making constant offers to there so that we can pull out fish and we can gain from that asset that we've created. And so one of the big things that taught us the importance of owning our lake was obviously what's happened this past couple of years with COVID. A lot of the lakes that we fished in dried up overnight. We were big on networking. We're big at being part of all these, lunches and mixers and all these events where we mingle with people. And guess what? Like, one day those all went away, right? And to Mike's point earlier, if 100% of our leads were coming from that activity, guess what? We probably wouldn't be in business today, right? Because it would have been really hard for us to transition and find a new lead source that could produce the amount of leads and prospects and sales that we needed to run our agency. But because we weren't in that situation and we did have other lead sources, all we did was simply say, cool, this one that is 20% of our lead flow, we know that's not there. Let's lean heavier on the other lead sources, right? One of those lead sources was our lake. Let's go out and come up with offers that we can go into our lake. We don't need to find new people. We just need to fish in the lake we've already got. And we were able to create strategies that we're able to create leads, create opportunities that helped us not only survive during COVID, but thrive in it. We grew during that time when a lot of other businesses were failing. And so you don't want to start building a lake when you need it. You know what I mean? You want to have that there so that if something comes up, it's an asset that you can rely on. And so what do we do when COVID hit? We wanted to focus on what we do best, right? Like, we wanted to lean into our digital marketing strategies, right? And what we decided to do was create a lead magnet that allowed us to fish in that lake. Something that allowed us to see, out of all the people that were in that lake, which ones were actually interested in digital marketing and improving their digital marketing, and which ones were actually interested in doing that today. Right? Because we had a list full of thousands of people, and you don't want to start calling those people one-on-one. Hey, do you need help with something? That's a very inefficient way to do things. So lead magnets are great because they capture the attention of somebody that is actively looking for help with something, right? And if you can title the lead magnet in a way that describes their need, then it's easy for you to see that they're actually genuinely interested in something. And so we went out and we went fishing, right? We went into Facebook's lake. We decided to throw some hook and bait in there, right, to catch the right type of fish and to try to reel those fish in. And so what did that look like? It looked like a strategy, which was a lead magnet. That was the 8 steps to increase exposure on Google, right? You can see in the title of that, like, nobody's going to download that if they're not actually interested on getting more visibility in Google, right? Nobody's going to download that if they're not like a small business. So like we know that that's the right type of bait, right? That's going to capture the right fish that we're actually looking for, or at least be in the general vicinity, right? It's not going to be somebody that's just a, regular person, doesn't own a business and like isn't interested in growing their business. Like that is an instant qualifier for somebody that we might want to talk to. Now, after they downloaded that, we want to reel them in with like a strategy session, something that can bridge them into an actual sales activity, sales process, right? And so what were the results? We threw the line in and we threw the bait in and we got a ton of leads. These were leads from all over the place. These are realtors, these are interior designers, moving companies, architects, glass companies. It wasn't necessarily one industry that was attracted to this. It was lots of different industries. But the cool part was there were people in those industries that were interested in improving their digital marketing, right? During that time, there's some businesses that weren't, right. They're ones that were like, man, the world's ending, and I'm just gonna like hold on to my money, and I'm not gonna try to do anything. This will be over soon, and they're gonna bleed out. Basically, I don't want to talk to those people. Like, I'm not gonna be able to sell them anything. I'm not gonna be able to convince them the world is gonna turn around and they should invest money, right? But guess what? The people that were downloading that, those were people that were actually interested in doing something, right? They wanted to put their best foot forward. They weren't going to go down without a fight. Those are the people that we wanted to help and to serve during that time. And so casting that bait really allowed us to weed through all of that list and get to the people that we could really help. And so what we came out of that with was an understanding that we could be in control of our lead flow, right? It wasn't this thing like it had been in the past with word of mouth leads where, we had zero control. They just came when they came, and we appreciated them, and we still appreciate them today. But right now they're the icing on the cake versus the core strategy of how we get our business. And so lead generation creates our own lake that we can fish in over and over again. And essentially, when you're thinking about lead generation, especially cold lead generation, the things that you want to accomplish are to create a functioning system that can generate leads for you, an understanding of how paid and organic strategies can help fill that lake, predictable lead flow that we could turn off or on as we please, or up or down as we please, and an asset that continues to grow that you can fish in over and over again. If you can keep your definition of what success looks like to that, that's going to allow you to stay in these strategies longer. And those strategies do eventually turn into what you want, which are the sales, which we'll talk about, in another time. But for now, I think I want you to definitely take this in, read this a couple of times, because there's so many people that just quit too soon, right? They stop the lead generation strategy because they're like, I ran ads for a week and I haven't had any sales. Well, you're not supposed to have any sales. You're supposed to have a lake. Do you have a lake? Well, yeah, but they're not buying. Well, they're cold traffic, right? They haven't been warmed up yet. The worst mistake that you can do is trying to treat a cold lead like a word of mouth lead. Like Mike said, that lead's already been warmed up. They're boiling hot. They're ready to go. And that's why they're so easy to sell. These ones, they're not there yet, right? But it doesn't mean they can't get there. It just means that you need to do a little bit of extra work to get them to that point. Awesome. So that was the cold lead strategy. Now, we want to talk about a warm lead strategy and eventually a hot lead strategy, because this is where a lot of times we want to spend more of our time, right? Like, it's great having cold leads. There's more cold leads out there than any other type of lead. And if you can learn how to warm them up, you're in a great position. But I want to go out and find more of the warm ones and more of the hot ones.
Yeah. So I think what's really cool is that, we've got a situation where we've just looked at cold leads here. And the cool thing about cold leads, there's as many cold leads in the world as you could possibly ever want, right? Like, there are tons of cold leads that are sitting out there on Facebook. There's tons of cold leads inside of BNI groups and networking things. There's tons of cold leads everywhere. But as we get warmer on this scale, like, that pool starts to shrink. And I think the big takeaway that I just want to highlight what you said, AJ, is like, don't treat a cold lead like a hot lead.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's why I see people getting frustrated with cold lead generation strategies, and then they pull out their hair because they're like, it's not working. They're not turning into clients. They suck. They're all terrible.
Right.
They are terrible until you warm them up. And that's what kind of looking at the rest of this is gonna give you some insights too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. So one of my favorite ways to develop warm leads is by what we call building strategic alliances. And so imagine building an army of salespeople that will work for you for free. That's essentially what this strategy is. This has been a huge part of like my lead flow and my ability to have success during my sales time at the agency, because I spent a lot of time focusing on this. And so the way it works is, you essentially creating a relationship with some other business that has the same type of customer that you have, but doesn't compete with the same services or doesn't have overlapping services, right? So like this again is a form of fishing in someone else's lake, right? There's people out there that have lakes full of the best fish, right? The exact fish that you want. And you know that because they're already paying this other person, this other business that they're already the type of business that you like to serve. They're your avatar. And when you can develop that type of relationship, then this is what creates more opportunities for you to have warm or even hot leads, right? And so the idea here is for you to identify what are those other lakes that exist that are full of the best fish, right? And so I've highlighted a few examples here, ones that have been super successful for me. An IT company. Lots of people will go to an IT company because they do computers, right? Oh, they must do websites because they do computers. Well, most IT companies don't do websites. They don't do hosting. They don't want to touch any of that stuff. That's not what they specialize in. They specialize in networks and fixing computers and those types of things. So if you can form a very solid relationship with an IT company that trusts you, well, guess what? All those people that are going to them and asking them, hey, can you build me a website? They're going to say no, but I know someone who does, right? And let me introduce you to them. Or they might be meeting with their existing clients, right? And the clients might bring it up and they might say no, but I know who does, right? And so that's an awesome opportunity for you to build more leads because that's happening on autopilot, right? There's all these people out here that are talking about you, that are nurturing their customer base and talking to a lot of the people you want to talk to. And now they're able to get them over to you.
Yeah. And it's not just that they're asking for help with a website. Like the key takeaway here is that somebody who is the client or customer of an IT company is the same type of client or customer that you serve. So what we're looking for is companies that serve the same audience, the same type of customer or client, but don't offer competing services, right? So everything on this list attracts a type of client that you could work with, but these companies don't offer digital marketing. They don't offer websites. And so even if that person who's a client of, say, the IT company isn't saying, hey, do you guys do websites? Like forming that relationships gives you the opportunity to fish in their lake, to be able to attract clients who are your ideal clients, but they may not even realize you exist or even be ready and asking for help yet.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to do with my strategic clients is it's like host an event together, right? Whether it's like a customer appreciation event, whether it's an education event, whether it's an online webinar, something where they can invite all of their customers, I can invite all of mine. And obviously that's a way for them to become aware of both of us, right? We're kind of having that co-mingling effect that's happening there. One of my favorite categories on this list is business coach. Why? They're basically paying this person to advise them on what they should do with their business. So if that business coach says, hey, you don't have any marketing going on, you need to do something about that. Your website's horrible. You need to get a website. And then they send them over to us. It's like already pretty much a done deal, right? It's like, why aren't they going to listen to their coach? Their coach is basically telling them they need to do this. And here's the person to go get it done with like, that's a no-brainer, right? And so I love those. So like, these are just some ones to consider. You might already be thinking about people that are in these different categories. It's going to take some time to create this full list of strategic alliances in all these different areas, but it's something that you should always be working to achieve, because once you have them for all the different industries, then you get a lot of lead flow that's coming in, really, really warm leads. And so where do we find strategic alliances? Networking events. If you've been at any networking events, I'm sure there's some that are in that category. It's as easy as saying, hey, I'd love to learn more about what you do and, share about some stuff about what I do. Maybe we can help refer business to one another. You hear anything, right? Most businesses are up to that because they want the same thing from you. Businesses groups, leverage existing contacts. You probably know other business owners, or you have friends of friends, or things like that, where they're kind of within your network. Just think about that. Sometimes you might need to search Google, like who are the people that are showing up? Who's the top IT company in town? How can I approach them and ask them? LinkedIn is another great spot where you can do that. Sometimes when I have strategic alliances, I'll ask them, hey, who do you know that's good in IT? Who do you know that's a good business coach? And allow them to help make those introductions. And then finally asking my clients who they use. That's super powerful, because I know if they're using them, that probably my other people that I want to target would be using them as well, right? Cool. So keys to successful strategic alliance relationship: give first, then get, guys. Like, nobody wants to go into the situation, you're saying, hey, can we meet so you can figure out how you can send me leads? Like, that's not the type of lunch that anybody's going to go to. But if it's like, hey, I get a lot of people asking about IT companies. I'd love to learn more about what you do and what you don't do. That way, if I hear something, I can get somebody over to you, right? Cool. I would take that lunch, right? And ultimately, what happens is they're going to want to reciprocate anyway, right? If you make the meeting about them and passing them leads, there's no way they're not going to also ask you questions and then want to do that same thing in return as well. And so always be genuine and sincere. This isn't like you're trying to fool them. You're trying to like trick them into sending you leads. Like these are solid relationships that you're trying to build that are going to last a long time. And you want to make sure these are people that you actually do trust to send people over to you. You do intend to send people over to you. And, you trust them to send stuff your way as well. Be patient and trust the process. Sometimes this takes a little bit. There's like a little priming of the pump to get this going. But once it goes, man, it can become a pretty big lead source, especially when somebody sends somebody your way. And then that person goes and thanks them. Oh my God, thank you so much for sending me to AJ at Anchorwave. Like they've been amazing. They've been awesome. They did exactly what I needed them to do. Well, guess what? Now that strategic alliance is like, cool. I'm the hero here, right? I want to be the hero again for another client. I'm going to send them over as well. Stay top of mind. You're not going to go to lunch one time, have a discussion, and then expect to get leads for the next 5 years, or even a year. Like with the big ones, I would meet with them monthly, for lunch, at least quarterly. Because otherwise you're not top of mind anymore. They might meet somebody else. They might forget that you do that. Like there's so many different things that happen if you don't stay in touch. Sometimes I'll just send them emails. Hey, look at this article. Hey, this, hey, that. Oh, how's it going? Are you any other networking groups you're going to? Any of that stuff that's like just going to remind them that you're there, right? So that when somebody asks about it, they remember. Always reciprocate, always try to make it a point to give them leads too, especially if they're giving you leads. One of the things that I would do again is ask my client, like, who are you using for IT? Who are you using for payroll? Who are you using for accounting? And sometimes asking them that would be like, oh, you know what? I don't have anybody. I've been trying to find an IT company. Cool. Guess what? I just created an opportunity for me to reciprocate now and say, oh, I know the exact person you should talk to. You want me to introduce you? Sure. Boom. Once you give somebody a lead, they're going to want to do it back for you as well. And so that's the same thing, creating more ways for you to recommend them, including it as part of your process. Anytime that you could do that, you're going to just create more opportunities for you to get leads. And that's going to always be given back to you. Last thing, reward them. If somebody sent you like an awesome lead, I've had strategic alliances where I've closed a huge website, $50,000 website or something. I might send them a gift basket. I might send them a gift certificate for dinner or something. Anything that's going to like reinforce like, hey, that was awesome. Do that again, right? Because people love that stuff. And believe me, just the smallest things would create more of that in them. Introduce them to other strategic alliances. So, this is kind of like people understand networking, they understand building relationships, but a lot of times they don't do it with like this type of like process, right? It's like that it happens naturally more so than them intentionally doing this. So when you can teach them about the power of strategic alliances and when you can introduce them to other people, it's almost like you have your own syndicate of people, right? That you're all working together and helping each other out. And there's some real power in that when you're able to achieve that. And so that's an awesome warm lead strategy, guys. Like as soon as you start building those up, anytime I get a lead from my strategic alliances, it's like, wow, this thing's going to close, right? Because they're passing them over not only with the recommendation, but they're qualified a lot of times because they're spending money with these guys who aren't cheap or aren't free either, right? So they have money to spend. They're motivated to do something because they probably asked them for referral, and now they're coming over to you ready to go.
Yeah. So you can start to see now that we've got, cold leads, we've got warm leads. Like this, maybe this is the first time you're considering that, like the leads that may be already coming to you or some of the sources that you've set up, like they really are distinct places that they're coming from, and they each have their own characteristics. The ones that are coming from, say, a strategic alliance, those ones are going to be handled a little bit differently because they're closer to that hot lead compared to that cold one. Mm-hmm. And so in this next section, we're going to be taking a look at where a source of hot leads may already exist inside your business, and oftentimes it's something that we see a lot of agencies overlooking.
Awesome. And before I jump into that real quick here, just consider that you might already have strategic alliances that you aren't labeling them as such, right? Like a couple people that maybe sent you a couple leads and it just happened by accident. Like go into that with more intention now. Start taking them to lunch, go have coffee, do those things. Start asking them for other strategic alliances, start to like build that relationship stronger, because if they've already sent you a couple, it's a great indicator that there's more that they can do. Be intentional with your strategic alliance strategy, and it'll give you a lot more results. So cool. All right. So I got to say, whenever Mike and I are working with somebody, the thing that they always want, right, is more leads. If only I had more leads, my agency would be like the most successful agency. I'd have $1 million agency. I just need to figure out how to get more leads, right? And they always want like a funnel, or they want some ads, or they want some way to go build this huge list of leads. But it's always like some cold lead strategy, right? And as we're seeing here, like cold leads are great, and there's a ton of cold leads, but they're also the hardest ones to get into a sales process and to actually close when you compare them to warm or hot leads, right? And so more times than not, when we're working with somebody, we tell them like, look, we can create a lead gen strategy. That's no problem. That's going to create a lot of cold leads, but you already have relationships in your world that are leads. And those are your existing clients, right? Those are the people that are already paying you money. They already know you. They already trust you. You know, there's so many people that just don't even consider going back to their existing clients in order to sell them more things, right? Like they came in, they sold them a website. And it's like, cool. If they need something else, they'll ask me for it, right? And it's like, no, meet with them. Tell them that you can do more things for them. You know, they hired you to build a website probably because they wanted more customers, more customer activity. Like, are there other things that you can do that you think are in service to that? Sure. So it's in your best interest, and it's actually good service to go out there and let them know how you can get them more of what they're looking for. And so Mark and I almost always will take somebody on as a student and say, look, we can work on cold stuff later, but first, let's focus on your existing clients. How many clients do you have? You know, are they buying everything from you that you do? You know, because if not, then you're wasting time going to this cold audience. You can get meetings with these people tomorrow if you call them, you know, in most cases, and get stuff sold today, right? So that's what we want to focus on. The probability of selling to an existing customer is 14 times higher than selling to a new customer, right? Yet we're not doing it. Yet most people don't have any type of a strategy for upselling clients, ascending clients. You know, they don't think of them as leads because they're not new. They are a lead. If you have somebody that bought something from you and now you give them an offer and they go into a sales process to buy something else, that's a lead and that's a prospect. Just because they bought from you before doesn't mean it's not a lead, right? And so the point here is that you might be sitting on top of buried treasure. You know, there's been plenty of clients that we've had completely focus on their existing client base, double their recurring revenue, triple their recurring revenue without talking to anybody new, just going to the same people that are already in their world. And so the reason that exists is because a lot of times we have all these half-built value ladders, right? And so value ladders, like the typical process and steps that somebody might buy things from you. So if you think about a traditional, you know, web agency, maybe they buy a website from you. And then after they're done with the website, you sell them SEO. Then after that, maybe you sell them Facebook ads, you know, maybe you sell them pay-per-click, whatever that order is from you. And, you know, ideally, it'd be great if they went up that ladder, right, and bought each and every one of those things. But the truth is, it probably looks a lot like this, right? Client A just bought a website. Client B just bought a website. Client C, they asked for Facebook ads, but they didn't buy anything else. Client D actually bought websites, local SEO, and Facebook ads. You know, client E bought websites and like local SEO. So you have all these people that have bought different things, but the majority of them only bought one thing. You know, it's usually the thing that they came to you and asked for, right? It's usually the thing to say, hey, can you do Facebook ads? Yeah, I can do that. Cool, doing it. And then that's kind of it, right? Well, they'll ask me if they want more stuff, right? And so why do agencies do this? Why do they ignore existing clients? And why don't they see that as an active place to get leads? Well, they're thinking this, you know, client already spent money with me, right? He already spent money with me. I'm not going to go ask him for more money. You know, that doesn't make sense. But the truth is, and a lot of times, once they've spent that first dollar with you, it's easier for them to spend more, right? If they've got their credit card on file, it's easier to say, hey, you know, that $750 a month that you're paying me, let's move that up to $1,250 and I'm going to do these extra things, right? Like that's a lot easier than getting somebody to spend that first dollar. Maybe you feel like it's too soon. You know, I just sold them SEO and, you know, in 6 months, 8 months, like when that starts kicking in, I'm going to go sell them something else. It's like, no, like, why do you think they want to wait? The only reason they're going to wait is because you're not offering them something else. What if you told them, hey, I'm selling you this SEO. And in a month you said, you know what, why don't you add some PPC to this, you know, and get some stuff going now while this other thing's working so that you can start to feel the impact of some of this digital marketing today. Like, don't you think they would want that? Like, why should they have to wait for any of this other stuff? That's just us kind of planting that in their mind. It was hard enough to get them to spend money the first time. And like I said, it seems like this would be true, right? Like, we've all had those customers like, man, I had to go out there 3 or 4 times.
Right.
It just took 2 months for them to make a decision. Like, we went back and forth, they complained about the product, blah, blah, and they finally signed, and I don't want to go through that again. Well, you're not going to have to go through that again. Like, they're not going to drag you through like that every single time. Again, sometimes people are slow to make a decision, but a lot of times once they've made that decision, they're willing to spend more money, right? They're not going to go through all of that because they've experienced you now. They can see that you get results. They can see you're professional. A lot of times they just have all these doubts about working with somebody, but once you have that established customer relationship, then it's easier to get them to spend more money. You might think that you don't have anything new to sell them. You might think that they know everything that you sell. A lot of times this has happened and frustrates me every single time where a client will call, hey, I need my Google Analytics password because I'm going to have this other company do SEO. And I'm like, why are you having this other company do SEO? We do that.
We
build your site. And they're like, you do that? Like, you didn't tell me you did that. And it's because they came to us for a website. We built a website and we failed to educate them on the other stuff that we do, right? So a lot of times you do have new stuff to sell them. Don't assume that they know everything that you do just because, well, we're a digital marketing agency. I'm sure they know that we do SEO and Facebooks and all this other stuff, right? They don't know. Like, go tell them or go remind them or go help them understand that that's the next step for them. Otherwise, you're going to miss those opportunities. A lot of times you just simply forget, right? Or you don't have a reliable process to resell clients. There's been so many times where I would sell a website to somebody and they're like, cool, as soon as this is done, we're going to start SEO. And I'm like, yes, let's do it. We're going to start SEO. Then I lose sight of the project. Like, it's kicked over to the web team. I don't know where it is in the project stages. And I don't know when it's done. I didn't know when it was launched. And none of those things triggered something in me to say, cool, remember that person said that? And now's the time to go back and sell to them. That's why we have more developed processes now. That's why we go back out to clients quarterly and talk to them about, how they can improve their online presence. That's why we have sales support people that will go out and schedule these meetings for our sales team so that they don't even have to think about that, right? It just shows up on their calendar. It's a regular part of our process. Clients aren't going out of their way to ask for help. It's like, if they needed this, they would ask me, right? And that's just kind of a poor way to do business, the truth is a lot of times they don't know what they need. That's why we're the expert. That's why we're the strategist. I bet you I do know what they need, which is more customers, right? That's pretty common amongst any business. So if you have some way that you can help them get more customers, it's in your best interest and in their best interest for you to tell them how you can do that, right? So educate them on what you can do and how it could help. This is one that's big for me a lot of times. Old clients aren't as fun as new clients, right? Like, you ever see Mr. Rogers or How It Was Made or whatever, where you're kind of taking these tours through the crayon factory and all this stuff. I used to love that about when I'd go out to meet these new clients and be like, man, I've lived in Tucson all these years. I've driven by this building a million times and I would have never guessed this is what's going on inside of here, right? It was a really, really cool part of the job. Sometimes with your existing clients, that newness isn't there, right? It's not there. What they do. Oh, they got it. So it's just not as exciting. And we tend to focus on where we're going to get some excitement.
All right. So guys, what did we learn here today? There's been a lot of interesting perspectives on lead generation, and I hope that you've seen a couple of key things. And, first is that we've got to diversify our leads, right? That, we've seen 3 different lead sources, lead sources from cold leads inside Facebook. We've seen warm sources from our strategic alliance network. We've seen sources that are coming from our existing client bases, and that's just 3, right? Imagine if you had 5 or 10 or more, that when these things ebb and flow, when they kind of wax and wane in their terms of how much activity they're producing for you, you can see that if, cold leads aren't as productive right now, well, that's okay because I have existing clients and I have strategic alliances sending me stuff. Or, my strategic alliances, they're just not as effective as they used to be, or they were last month, and these other sources pick up. So we can start to see how we create a more stable, more reliable business when we have lead sources that are diversified. And we talked about this, that most agencies only run on those hot leads. We did this for a long time. And the scary part for us was that we were growing our business and growing our team based off of a lead source that was unpredictable. So what would happen in a month where we had an amazing month? Oh my gosh, we just sold the local casino on this big project and we're so proud of it. And it's, people are going to see the work that we've done and let's pat ourselves on the back. And the next month, what happens, right? We have the people, we have the office, we have the software subscriptions, we have, all of the expenses of running a business, but we don't have the lead sources to pay for it. That is a scary place to be, right?
That's what keeps you up at night for sure, right?
100%. It keeps us up at night. And that's what ultimately, led us on a pathway to creating more stability in our business. One of those ways was by diversifying our lead flow. There's other ways to create a stable business, but that is a really key piece there. Understand this, guys. Like, if there's one thing that you take away from today's episode is that, agencies that win are ones that have the ability to warm their own leads. We talked about the idea that businesses go from and leads go from cold to warm to hot, right? In the next episode, we're going to be talking about specifically how to do more warming up of your leads, right? Because the ones that are able to do this, that they can tap into the unending, limitless pool of cold leads on a place like Facebook or lots of other platforms. And if you have the skill set of actually warming up your leads, what if every lead that came to you was warm? What if every lead that came to you was even hot? That's a different business to be running, right? And that's why, AJ, opened us up today talking about building that lake. But in the next episode, we'll be talking about warming up those prospects. Cool. So guys, we want to bring you value in these episodes here. And it's our goal to provide you so much value through these trainings and these episodes that you kind of understand a new way of looking at building an agency. So we talked earlier today, and today's sponsor, agencywarplan.com, around the idea of building a personalized plan for your agency. And so we'd love to invite you guys into the Agency Warp Plan that's upcoming. It's a 5-day challenge, and it's starting real soon. So you can head over to agencywarplan.com to find out all the details there. It's a 5-day challenge where each day we're going to be walking through things like how to generate leads. We have a big list of strategies beyond what we talked today about generating leads that you can deploy into your business. We're going to be talking about how to improve your conversion rates, how to close more of the deals that are coming to you. We'll be talking about how to get more of the clients that are already buying from you to buy more often, to spend more money, and ultimately keep more of the money that you earn. So what's included in the challenge, we're going to be going through the 5 moves to double your business training. It's 5 days of live training, sitting in a room with myself and AJ talking through all this stuff. We're going to be giving you guys recordings available if you can't make it live. You'll have a completed written action plan for the next 90 days. Most businesses do not have a written action plan, and we're going to leave this challenge with that. Again, we're going to give you strategies for client acquisition, helping you optimize your conversions, increase the average customer spend, creating repeat customers, and building better margins. We'll also be diving into some mindset coaching, because we can give you strategies, we can give you tactics, but if you don't believe that they're going to work, or you don't believe it's possible for you, none of that stuff will work. You'll also be joining a community of other agencies just like you. We're building communities of people who are confident in getting clarity in their agencies, and spending time around those types of people is super valuable. So just a little bit about the program. We thought that when we first launched this, this is something that's clearly valuable at $1,000, $997 easily. But AJ and I really challenged ourselves to say, how can we get more people into this? And we said, well, what if we lower the price and the investment into $497, right? And we said, that's still too much. And ultimately, we decided that you can join the Agency War Plan for only $97, and you could register over at agencywarplan.com/go. So again, this is a plan that you're going to get. It's a written plan that is all about what are the steps that you need to take. Most people have lots of floating ideas about what they think they should be doing, but ultimately, when you've really clarified what the thing that you need to do and why you're doing it, and actually have a written plan down, is the difference between it actually happening and not. And so if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm often very active inside of my DMs. So you can go to dmwithmike.com. Happy to answer some questions for you there. And the thing is that, there's a lot of people who've been through this program already. We've got a lot of case studies of people who have seen massive transformations in their business, and especially in their mindset around this whole program. So again, in the program, you'll get the 5 moves to double your business training, 5 days of live training. Each day will go live, recordings of all the trainings if you can't make it live, which is totally theirs there for you to rewatch those trainings, a complete written action plan, and again, a bunch of strategies for getting more clients and for closing more of the clients that are coming to you. We're going to help you get your clients to spend more money with you when you sell a project. We're going to show you how you can create repeat customers and how you can keep more of the money that you earn through improving your margins. Daily mindset coaching, of course, joining lots of other agencies. There's a lot of friendships that get formed here, a lot of referral partners and sources in this group as well. So one of the questions that people ask is like, how do I know it's going to work for me? And what AJ and I decided to do is offer the bonus of the agency. There we go. A big bonus of where AJ and I are going to review your plan personally. So you're going to go through this process, read the plan, write the plan down. You'll give that to us. We'll review it. We're going to give you personalized feedback to make sure that you're on the right track. Right track. Now, because of that, because we're personally actually reviewing these plans, there's only a limited number of people that will be able to actually accept into that war plan session. So when we reach capacity for that personalized reviews, we will close the session. All right. So real quick, just wanted to show you a couple of case studies of some folks that have been through the program so you can kind of learn through that as well.
The agency war plan took me from knowing that I wanted to start an agency, but not knowing where to start, to having a clear-cut plan that I can follow over the next 90 days with the milestones and the numbers that I need to reach in order to have a successful agency.
When starting out an agency, there's been so many tasks that I have in front of me. It's been very difficult to know where to prioritize my efforts and how to make my agency a success.
One of the things that the war plan taught me that I didn't think about was what are the 5 pillars I need to improve first, because I was thinking I need leads, because if I don't have leads, then I don't have conversions, I don't have sales, I don't have money.
With this program, they've added real value to me and for my agency, and the structure and the processes that they've put together, and being able to point me to the right direction of where to focus to make this a success.
It just really helped me focus and figure out exactly where I need to start so I can figure out where I need to go.
Big thank you to Mike and AJ for this program.
I really appreciate it, and thank you very much. And anybody that's thinking about doing this, I definitely think that they should do it.
If you get the opportunity, I definitely recommend you take any training that you can from Mike and AJ. They're down to earth, they're knowledgeable, and they're experts in the industry. Remember that any time that you spend in this training with them is not just time spent, it's actually an investment in your business.
All right, guys.
The agency war plan took me.
All right, there we go. All right, so guys, really appreciate you guys jumping in with us on the first episode of the Agency on the Rise podcast. We're excited to be bringing this to you guys on a regular basis. And for those of you guys who'd like to join us for the Agency War Plan, just head over to agencywarplan.com/go. All right, guys. Well, that's our episode here. We're going to jump into some Q&A right now. This is the benefit of you guys joining us live for that. Super excited to have ripped off the Band-Aid, man. We did our first episode and we're going to do more of these things, and a lot of fun. We have a lot of ideas and trainings. We'll also be bringing in agencies to interview agencies that are on the rise, the ones that are doing amazing things, to be able to share some cool stories. So we got that in store for you as well. So the way the Q&A session works, for anybody who's watching on YouTube or on Facebook, if you're not in the Zoom room, you got to be in the Zoom room to ask the question. So around that video that you see playing, you'll just go ahead and register. You'll get the link to jump in here. So go ahead and do that. But you guys all know that there's the reactions. You guys can raise your hand. So if you have a question and want to chat about anything, about the training today, about the war plan, about anything else that's going on in your business or agency, we got a little bit of time to chat about that. So happy to open up the floor to anybody who's got those questions, and just go ahead and let us know that you're ready to jump on in. And then Craig, if we've got anything that's happening in the chat, looks like we've got Michelle. So Michelle, go ahead and unmute, and let's jump into it.
Hey guys, I was just wondering, I am going through the ClickFunnels certification training right now, and I'm thinking that this might be a really good addition to the skills that I'm learning there. Do you think I could do this hand in hand, like since I'm going through it now, or is it something that I should wait till I'm most of the way through with the certification program and add this on? Currently, it's just me, but wanting to start my own agency.
Right. Okay. So you're wanting to start your agency right now. You're getting certified to go through all their programs to ultimately offer these services to two clients. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it could be very complementary to what you're seeing there, because what we'll be doing inside the war plan is understanding how to create a full business of how we attract leads, right? How we improve our conversions, how we get the people that are spending money with us to spend more than they might have otherwise. And there's a lot of different strategies we'll implement to help kind of the sales side of your business and ultimately the service delivery side as well. So I think that being certified is a fantastic idea because it's going to give you a lot of the tactical hands-on on how to do the work. Where this fills in is actually more on the client acquisition and kind of building in and bringing it in the business. So obviously the certification is a tall order. There's a lot of stuff to consume there, so you definitely have to balance your time in terms of where you're focusing your attention. And so we wouldn't want to create any sort of distraction. But this is an hour of training per day and something where you can watch it at your own pace if you can't fit it in. So I'm inclined to say that it could be very complimentary. I think the one thing you just want to be careful of is that you're not just drinking from the fire hose and taking on too much. So just that's ultimately for you to evaluate and decide, but that would be my only caveat, I think.
Yeah, and there are some other people that are doing that are in both of them and going through that, and I haven't heard anything negative about that. So.
Yeah, it's been very complimentary.
Yep.
Okay, I appreciate your insight on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our pleasure. Very good. Thanks for your question. All right, guys, what other questions can we answer for you guys today? About lead generation, about running an agency. Maybe there's a specific issue that's going on inside of your business right now, and we could dive into that too. All right, Taylor.
How do you remember to follow up more often with the hot leads and warm leads as opposed to getting stuck on the cold leads?
Fantastic. I think most people do get sucked into the cold leads, and that because I think, like AJ said, they're the new ones. They're like, oh my gosh, it's like fresh opportunities, but it's easy for us to ignore or neglect that. I'd say one way that we've solved that, especially when we were earlier on in our business life, is setting up our CRM, our customer management system, in a way that is working for us as opposed to not working for us at all. So those are things like making sure that you're setting reminders. If a client, let's say that you close an opportunity with the client today for, say, helping them with the reviews and reputation management, part of your process could be to set a calendar appointment in your CRM to follow up 30 days later. Because after 30 days of helping a client with the reviews, they should have received a bunch of 5-star reviews. They probably think you're like the coolest, best, most awesome person in the world. And now we have the opportunity to go back to them and talk to them about these other things. But if we don't do it or don't remember to do that, then we don't, right? Now, our agency is also kind of taking that a step further, and you want to talk about kind of the additional resources we brought in to help with that.
Yeah. So one of the things the challenges that we faced over and over again was we were just having a hard time getting our salespeople to refocus on the existing clients for a lot of the reasons that I mentioned on that slide. And so one thing I know as when I was in sales and my sales guys is that we follow our calendar, right? If the meeting's on there, it's not like we're not going to go to it. So we took that scheduling aspect out of the salesperson's hands and we put it onto kind of a sales support type person. So it's her responsibility to kind of keep tabs on who's due for like a quarterly review, or who, even with new leads coming in, scheduling those scheduled on their calendar as well. Because sometimes in sales we get busy, right? Like it might be one of those periods that we were talking about where we just got a ton of word of mouth leads, and I've got a bunch of proposals this week, and I've got a bunch of people that I need to meet with, and that new lead that kind of went into my inbox, it gets buried, right? You didn't call it right away, and now it's like a week later and it's way down there. So now those don't go to the salespeople; those go to somebody else who that's their only job, is to make sure all these things get scheduled. And to Mike's point with the 30-day thing and review lead, like I even go a step further and just schedule that meeting in that when you make that sale and say, look, we're starting this. Let's schedule a meeting for 30 days out for a check-in. I just want to make sure this is working for you. And guess what? They appreciate that. Now, I still might have a CRM activity that says remind them about that meeting, because sometimes when meetings are too far out, right, like they lose sight of it. But right. I think the main point there is always having that next step with the client, right? The ball's in your court. You should always have a next step of the next time you want to interact with that client. if they don't interact with you first.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think, the role of having someone in your agency be responsible for, getting these things calendared and reminding this stuff. In our agency, we're big enough where we have a person who's one of their primary responsibilities is this task. They do other things as well, but that's a big part of their job because of how valuable it is. And so the idea of hiring someone in your agency, especially if maybe you're just starting out or, a smaller team, might be like, well, that's great for you guys. You guys, of course, it makes sense to do that, but how does that make sense for me? Well, the beautiful thing is like this role can be had very inexpensively, right? You don't need a full-time resource. There are people on Upwork that would be happy to have a contract with you that for, maybe an hour a week, that this is something that they're paying attention to, or 2 hours a week, and getting them integrated into a CRM or having them be responsible for reaching out and picking up the phone, sending the emails, like that can be had very inexpensively. This is also a task that you could put on if you were going to look for, an overseas virtual assistant. Like that's also something that you could put as part of their role. So I know that left up to ourselves, and AJ's experienced this as well, is that we will not remember to do it. And we will, plan to use the CRM, but we just don't do it.
Right.
We're good for a while and then we drop off. Right. And the reason why is because it's hard to connect that activity of actually scheduling that appointment with the reward of the sale. Right. It's so future thinking. It's such it's very disconnected. So we tend to forget about those things. So by actually making it someone's responsibility and a key part of their role, whether that's somebody who's working for you as a W-2 employee or somebody who's contracted just to do this one piece, is a way to ensure that it happens. And I would say that's a lesson in general for business. Anything that you think needs to be done and you believe to be valuable in your business that should be done that isn't happening, find a systematic way to solve that. And this is an example of that. Sometimes you can systematically hire the right person to follow this sets of procedures to actually get these things done in your business.
Right. And all this has been talking about, just existing clients. For strategic alliances, like a lot of the CRM software has the ability to create separate pipelines. So I would have a separate strategic alliance pipeline that would help me manage that, right? Because like I said, I'd want to have like a touch point each month. I'd want to have at least a lunch or coffee or something quarterly. So I would just put them in the right, bucket or stage, put the next activity in there to get that scheduled. And it made it way easier for me to just continue managing my relationships with those people.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good stuff. All right. What other questions we have you guys like to jump in on? If we've reached the bottom of the well, that's okay too. There may be a situation going on in your agency or something about today's training, or any perspective we'd be happy to provide to you guys. All right. Well, great, guys. Well, thank you so much for helping us with our first episode. I say it went well, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks so much, guys.
And appreciate your guys' time here today. Look forward to more and sharing more with you guys, and hope to see some of you guys in Agency War Plan, and we'll see you there. All right. Cheers, everybody.